Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with a small town farm girl who had dreams of acting, modeling, and majoring in vocal music, who turned into a registered nurse, trainer, and baker, who was convinced by her husband to start competing. After her first show in 2018, she realized it wasn't going to be a one and done deal. She fell in love with it, and 14 shows later, became an IFBB pro. Welcome to the show, Kimberly Gier. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm so good. So happy to be talking to you. And of course, I got to ask you, is there something that you do or maybe a ritual you have or something you think about right before your heel hits the stage?
So I've been thinking about your questions that you asked for a couple of weeks now, and I just couldn't figure out a way to write down what I for sure want to say. So I'm I'm just going to wing it. So I don't have any, I guess, super specific thing. I am a very faith-based person. I'm a Christian person, and so I guess my peaceful spot is as I'm standing in line, I love to talk to the girls. I love to get to know people. That helps me get my nerves out and stuff. But I always take a minute. I kind of step away from everybody, but not so far away from the line that I get in trouble, because you know how that goes.
Oh, yes.
And just close my eyes, couple deep breaths, and I just say a prayer. And it's just usually I pray and, I ask for confidence, and I ask to be able to shine my light for God and for everybody to stay safe and not fall. And so just that kind of stuff. So I just take my own mental moment. And as far as backstage, I just always make sure especially finals, to just talk and hang out and enjoy, and you're sharing what you might have for post show and stuff. I just like to talk to people. It helps me get out of my own head, kind of.
Absolutely. Yes. And has that maybe been the same even throughout now as a pro, or do you think that is going to evolve and change?
So I actually, I did my pro debut, my first pro show. And yeah, everything was pretty much exactly the same. Honestly, I wasn't nervous at the pro show at all. I kind of knew I was probably just going to do that one, maybe a few others, and just see where I placed, to kind of get some feedback, and then go into a time away from stage. So yeah, at that show, everything was essentially the same. I wasn't nervous. I was just hanging backstage with the girls, talking, hanging out, and still did my little moment of prayer, moment of collecting myself, and everything went good. And yeah, so I don't think it will probably change much. It's gotten me it's taken me a lot of lessons learned and a long time to get to the point where, you have to realize that when you go to shows, yes, this is important. This is a super passionate hobby, but at the end of the day, it's it's just a bikini show. I still have my family to go home to. I still have my husband. I still have my, my life, and whatever happens, it'll be okay. So yes. Whenever you can really get that set into your head, you can go and you can just relax and have fun. And I wish I would have truly believed that maybe earlier on in my competing career. But so that's just a lesson learned.
Absolutely. Yes. And how do you feel about your pro debut? This was the Omaha Pro.
Yeah, I felt great. I mean, I placed like 13th out of 15. I have people ask me, they're like, "How'd you do?" And the first thing I would say was, it's the best I've ever looked going on stage because to me, it's always that you versus you. I know that's cliche. Everybody says that, but I mean, it's true. Like, as long as I beat the previous look that I had on stage, then that's all that matters to me. I had a blast. I loved my stage look. Being able to do the longer routine was so fun. And I had a week and a half to practice it on a still bum ankle. So I
Yes.
felt proud that I was like up there and like yeah, it was best package that I brought out and I accomplished, two of the main goals that I had set in my like planner last October was to go pro and compete in a pro show. So I was super proud of it. I mean, obviously I would have liked to have played better, but I don't know. I think once you get into that pro level, it's like, okay, that one's down. Like on to the next one because I mean, if you don't learn to lose, you're going to have a very short career probably because you're going to lose way more than you're going to win ever.
Yes. And there can only be one winner.
Exactly.
And you were up against an amazing lineup as well.
Yeah, a lot of these girls had already competed in multiple shows. There was one other girl that was her pro debut, and she placed, I think, two spots above me. So her name was Vanessa, I believe. And so we were really right there at the bottom together. So, um, you gotta pay your dues. You gotta show up and keep showing up, and then show up some more, and eventually you'll get to where Anya and Jessica and all of them were too. So
Yes. And to that point, you had mentioned earlier, like if you are beating the last best, then that's something to be proud of. And if you can go home and have family and have friends and know that you have a support system, I mean, you're really winning.
yeah, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, one day like shows will be done and this chapter will be closed and you have to make sure that you nurture all the other spots in your life too, so that when you do go back to I guess what you would call like normal life, I don't know what that is necessarily for everybody, but that you still have a rich life at home too. So I'm blessed with a very like a good family and like a great husband and just an awesome set of friends and stuff at home. So I know I still win every day.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited to talk to you more just about you and your husband and the relationship you guys have as well as how that led you to competing. But let's talk about your road to pro because you just brought up that you were on a bum ankle. And I thought this is something that you had faced throughout that last couple weeks. And that's incredibly difficult. I mean, a grade 3 sprain and then going on to earn your pro card. So what happened and what made you decide to keep on pushing?
So this year I had like I started my prep in February. I started a little early because I planned a surprise trip for my husband to Miami in April, and I wanted to be almost stage ready when we went, so I could go and enjoy like an intuitive week, kind of take off. So I did all that, came back, finished out my last couple of weeks, and I warmed up with the Pittsburgh Pro Am show, and I was able to win my class there. And I'm like, okay, this is good, setting it up for a good run. And so I went to Junior USA's and I got second there. I'm like, all right. They told me I was like 2 points away from like, or two votes away from like getting that first place spot. And I'm like, okay, I'm right there. Like I got this. So, my fire's burning, my wheels are turning. Like I'm still going, still pushing hard. We had gotten back that following weekend and went out on the lake. Like we live at Lake of the Ozarks. So, all you do all summer long is boat. Like that's just what you do. And it was a total freak like accident. I jumped from one back of a boat to the next, something I do like 3,000 times in a summer. And I landed on it like sideways
Ooh.
and like it, I swear came all the way out of the socket and back in.
Ooh.
I went the next day to the urgent care after my ortho doctor looked at it, and he thought it was broken. But I went and had it x-rayed and everything, and it wasn't broke. But then they told me it would have been better off if it would have been broke.
Yeah, I
because
hear that
it
too.
ended up being, like you said, a third-degree high ankle sprain. So it wasn't even just the bottom. It went like all the way up to the knee. So I had bruising all the way up and down. And that was right at, let's see, that was a week after USA or Junior USA. So 3 weeks out,
Oh
I
my
think.
goodness.
I was freaking out that Sunday. I had a small mental breakdown. I could not walk at all. Like, I mean, at all. So I thought, I'm like, awesome. I've like totally ruined my chances. Here I was like 2, maybe 3 votes away. Like, I was so close to getting my pro card, and I just felt it. Like, last year at the end of the year, I got to where like I was still in a bad like mental mindset. Like, if I would have turned pro, I wouldn't have deserved it, because I did not have that pro mindset. So my opinion, like, that's why I didn't. Like, I was not there. I wasn't ready. I wasn't a pro mature mindset. Whereas like this year, I started off my prep in a whole different kind of way. Like, there was something that just changed completely in me. It's like I let go of all the, like, oh my gosh, you got to go pro, like the silly side of it. And I just like let it be what it was going to be. And this was the easiest prep I've ever had, the easiest, best my body's ever responded. Like, so I just knew like it was going to happen. I felt it this year. And so I'm like, you know what? After I had my little mental breakdown that Sunday, I'm like, I'm still going to do it. I'm going to keep going. So I went back to my ortho doctor and I said, what can we do? He said, well, normally I cast people for like 2 weeks and I put them in a boot for like 4, but I already know you're not going to do that. And I'm like, you are correct. So I'm like, what can we do? So I just like, I strapped it up in an air cast. I still went in the gym. I could do all of my upper body. But all my lower body for that 3 weeks was just with bands. Lots of like glute bridges and like kickbacks and stuff like that. And I did no cardio for like 2 weeks, which made me super nervous, because I'm one of those people that works better on higher cardio. But yeah, I had made one post that said something about like, failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And so that was my mindset that whole 3 weeks. I'm like, what's the worst that happens? Because I booked the trip, I booked, the makeup and had my tan ready, and we booked the show. Like, I had everything done. So I'm like, I'm going regardless. Like, I'll either show up and I'll be able to go on stage, or I'll show up and I'll support the girls and I'll go out and enjoy some good food with them. So, yeah, that's kind of long story short, that's what led up to it and kind of how I approached it. I just wasn't going to let it stop me. I was too close and I worked too hard for it. And I just knew if I could get on stage that I could get there.
Wow. That's amazing, because that you could have quit. You could have said, no, I'm not going to do this, not going to push it. You also were running the risk of it getting worse and potentially not actually getting where you wanted to be, but it was a risk you're willing to take because something was telling you that this was going to be your time. And you felt that way, maybe especially after Junior USA's, where you felt like you really became a professional. And then to have that almost flash before your eyes with this injury and make you think, oh man, I'm not going to be able to do it, but I have to do it. And you committed to the whole thing. You mentioned that you changed workouts up, which I was really curious about. I was also curious then, if you had to drop cardio, did you also have to bring down, when I say drop cardio, I mean take it out. Did you also have to bring your food down?
So here's the even crazier part is I was still at like, I think my coach left me at like 2,100 calories for the first week of my ankle injury with no cardio. The second week, I was still at like 1900 halfway through the week with no cardio, and then dropped to like 1700. And my body surprisingly was like responding well. Like I wasn't gaining any like fluff, so to say, or anything. I don't know if it's because I was so preoccupied with like my ankle that like I wasn't stressing about like my normal prep things. I was also going and doing like laser treatments on my ankle like every 2 or 3 days, and like I was just focusing so much on that the rest of prep, it was just like a autopilot. So I don't know, sometimes if I overstress, that's when my body will respond poorly. But if I'm stressing about things not prep related, it's like it doesn't. Like the same thing happened like the last December at my last show with my husband's injury too. That's a whole nother story. But yeah, we didn't drop really until right into that last week. We came in a little bit, I'd say, fuller for junior nationals. Sandy, I feel like liked that little bit fuller look. She likes girls to come in very like strong and like healthy looking, not so much like depleted. So the fact that we left my calories up a little, I think worked like in my favor. It wasn't necessarily my favorite like look, so to say. Like I felt a little bit not as lean as I would have liked to, but I also felt just a little off of my element just because posing is like my favorite, and that's where I've not really had a lot of issues or problems, or like I always felt confident in it. And since I couldn't bend my foot right and we still had to tape it up and wear a wrap like going on stage, I was really nervous about that too. So I was just in a weird funk for that show. But yeah, the calories managed to stay like some of my highest I've had the whole prep, actually. So that kind of blew my mind. I have no explanation of that.
Wow.
And yeah, the workouts, upper body essentially stayed the same, but like lower body, we dropped to literally like just 3 choice exercises for each body part, like upper and lower, and just like 4 sets of 10 on each. So it was a whole lot less exercises, but I would concentrate so hard on like a kickback. Like my 4 sets of kickback would take me like 20 minutes because I would go like so slow, like that mind muscle connection. And I tell you, like I woke up some of the days more sore than I had in half of my other workouts. So it was a good change up. Like it definitely helped and kept me like where I needed to be.
That's so cool. I think it's interesting that you wore a I don't know, like a sleeve thing on stage as well.
That was like a compression sleeve over the kinesiology tape.
Wow. Like, to be honest, I didn't notice it in your pictures until I was like on NBC News Online, and I thought, oh my gosh, she has a sleeve on.
I dyed it in the I dipped it in the protein the night
No,
before.
you didn't. That is awesome.
My husband and I went to Walgreens because my brace would have been way obnoxious to wear on stage, and it wouldn't fit with the heel. So we went, and I had the kinesiology tape, but I just needed something to put the pressure on the ankle, because if it didn't have that pressure, it throbbed so bad that like it hurt so bad to walk on it. But as long as it was compressed, it was fine. So yeah, we went to Walgreens and found it, and it was like white, and I'm like, well, that's gonna stand out. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just try to dye it and see what happens. So it worked. It was still wet when I put it on the next day, but it worked.
It did. Did they notice it?
So I don't know if the judges really noticed it or not. I know JM even said he's like, even taking pictures, like it took me a minute to like notice it was there. And I noticed details that's for a living, like for photography and everything. He's like, I noticed it, but like it took a minute. So I felt like it blended pretty well.
Yeah.
Could have been worse.
Yeah, it could have been white.
Yeah, that would have been a sore thumb for sure.
Well, it's amazing that, you had to switch up your workouts, you had to switch up your nutrition just slightly, hardly. Um, Actually kept you more full, and the workouts challenged you in a new way. So even though it wasn't an ideal situation, it contributed to your success in some ways, and it's part of your story, which is cool.
And I think it just like, it taught lessons like that and experiences like that, I think can teach you a lot about like what you can really do if you put your mind to it. What your body can do, what, that whole like you're stronger than you believe kind of thing. And, also that things could always be worse. Like I could have broken it. I could have had to have surgery. I could have been completely out for like 6 or 8 weeks. Like, so I was just thankful that I could even have still gotten on stage. It may have not been ideal, but, I could have not competed at all. So, uh, I was just super happy, and I felt really blessed to be able to go and experience that, because that was also going to be the last show that my husband probably would have been able to make it to, because he gets really busy with work during the summer and stuff. So it's just like all aligned. It was right. It was the show like it was meant to be. And funny enough, that was going to be the very first national show I ever wanted to do.
Hmm.
And I didn't end up getting to do it for some reason. It may have been COVID actually. I think that's why. So it was like it came like full circle. Like that was the show I always wanted to do first, and then that's where I got my pro card at. And yeah, I learned a lot of lessons along the way.
Yes. And you mentioned that back in, I believe you said in December, which was before USA's that we both competed at. Too bad we didn't
Yes.
meet each other, but
No.
I got, honestly, there's so many people now I'm interviewing, and I'm like, what the heck? They were at USA's, and I didn't like. What are you gonna do? Introduce yourself to everybody back there? I don't know. It's a different animal.
Go down the
So
line and just shake everybody's hand. Hi, hi, hi.
yes, I would not remember anybody if I did that.
No.
But grateful to be talking to you now. And back in this time, you experienced something difficult with your husband. So, yay, he was able to make it to this past show, but unfortunate that he had a freak accident. What happened? And
Yeah.
and then can you just tell us more about like this whole last year? I know you had a few different challenges. So what came up for you, and how do you think it morphed you into the person you are now?
I mean, I know we like kind of talked a little bit about that. I don't know, there's a lot, but do you want me to just give like that short run through?
Yeah, give me what happened with your husband. Like you moved. Okay, like there was a lot. What else did you do? You
So
moved.
the
You
last 18 months is about the time frame it took place in. So just like a bullet point list, and then you can ask details about what you would rather have details on. So starting last April, I moved, moved from Springfield, Missouri to Lake of the Ozarks. It's only like an hour and a half or so, but I moved. We got married, and I had switched coaches literally like 2 weeks before I got married, and I was already like prepping, even though, preps all got pushed back and back and back because COVID. But so I moved, I was already prepping, I got married. I had a revision of my breast augmentation at the end of May, which was 12 weeks out from my first show.
wow.
I got a new job. I did 3 other national shows. I started my own small baking business, and then my husband. So this was in December. So that was all still in the last like 6 months that all happened. And I
Very
traveled.
uneventful.
Yeah, yeah. From like that 18 months, I did 8 shows total. And then last December, on my last show of last year, which by the end of the year, I was like getting more and more depleted. I lose upper body the more that I cut. And I was definitely like, I should have stopped at the last show. I really should have. But, I just wanted to go do one more. Shows are fun. Everybody loves competing. But I flew out early because he had already taken off time from work for something else. So he was going to just fly out and be there for the night before the show and the show. get to go out and celebrate and enjoy. And then we were going to fly home together. And it was the night before he was supposed to fly out. He had went out with some of his guy friends to dinner, and it was pouring rain, and he had like went outside to walk back to his truck and slipped in the rain, fell and tore his quadricep from his knee.
Oh my God.
And I asked him how his night was, and he's like, well, and I'm like, oh no, what happened? So I call him on the phone, and he's telling me this, and he won't send me pictures, which like I'm a nurse too, so like I know what something's gonna look like and when it's probably not good. And so he finally sent me pictures, and I am like freaking out. Like, he needs to go to the ER. I didn't know whether he had like either a blood clot or broke something or tore everything. I don't know. It looked so bad. It was like 4 times bigger than the other knee. So he woke up, he's like, no, I'm going to come to the show. He woke up the next morning and is still trying to say, I'm fine. He was still laying in bed, so he hadn't moved on it yet. And when he went to get up that morning, he almost fell down because, I mean, before he knew, like, your whole quadricep is gone from your knee. There's nothing in that. Like, that's the muscle that literally, does the most work when you stand up. So yeah, he ended up going to the ER, and like, I'm not there. I'm thinking he is probably going to end up having to go into surgery. And I'm no, he didn't. Luckily, so I work in the surgery department actually at the hospital. I'm PRN there now because I'm busy enough with training and everything. But I texted the ortho doctor that I know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I need you to make sure that like he's stable, but like, please don't let him have surgery without me there. And I'm trying to, like, the show is, that day. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, do I need to rebook flights? Like, do I need to get home? I was considering like bailing on the show. Like, I didn't know what I needed to do. So he went, and they decided like he was fine to wait and schedule it for that Thursday. And I was actually supposed to compete in the Olympia Amateur. Like, I had already had everything booked for that too. So I canceled all of that. I went home and made it back because ideally he could not, like, he couldn't walk by himself. He couldn't like dress or like shower or anything because he couldn't stand up.
Yeah.
So after surgery, and this was like 2 weeks before Christmas, after surgery, like, he was in the, like, immobilizer. So it had to stay at a 0-degree angle for like a solid, like, 2 weeks. So yeah, it was a long road for him and for me. And we were up like every night, all night for weeks. And he was so uncomfortable and so much pain. Like, it was a rough, like, we had a lot go on in our first year of marriage. Like, we got married May 2nd. So we just celebrated our 1 year not too long ago. But yeah, for a first year of marriage, it was definitely a test of so many things. And him having to put up with all my preps and like traveling, and he's a good sport about that though. But yeah, that was the big thing then. And then nothing except my injury this year. So knock on wood, let's hopefully keep it that way.
For real. Oh my gosh. Man, how's he doing now?
He's doing good. He's, I guess, like a full 7 months now. He's like back in the gym and able to like, the last month or so, especially, like, his weights are going back up on like just some basic like quad stuff. He'll do like some leg press, some leg extension and stuff like that. And his weights are going back up. It took a while for him to get like even on each side, because there was so much hypertrophy of that quad. Like, it was like a fourth of the size of the other one. So he's doing way better.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And I am glad that you guys survived that first year against the odds, and you were able to come out of it with a lot of success despite those challenges, and not just for you, but him as well. And you brought up a few other things that you faced and that you were going through as well, and that you do. And I feel like I could take this conversation in so many ways. So I guess let me start with the wedding, because that might help me to then segue into your coaching experiences. But were you on prep during your wedding, or did you take like a intuitive time?
So it was kind of confusing because I had literally just switched over to my coach now, Casey with Boss Bodies. And so, it was kind of like trying to learn a new coaching style and new training styles. And then it was COVID, and we didn't really get to go on a honeymoon. We were supposed to go to Turks and Caicos, but we were able to go a couple days down to Destin. And so, doing like random banded workouts like in the condo that we had. And so I was like, it was funny. My old coach, as we were preparing for the wedding, he said, he gave me like an extra so many carbs, so many fats for like the wedding day and stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm like, I'm going to eat my cake.
Stuff.
I'm going to enjoy my food. Like, if that one day ruins my prep for like 2020 and that's what cost me a pro card, so be it. Like, you only get one wedding. So I was like, yeah, I'm just going to enjoy this. Talking to her about like my new coach, as far as like prepping on the honeymoon and stuff. So the couple of days we went, it was kind of like an intuitive type. So I am pretty good about like, if we go somewhere, like eating my normal breakfast, like eating like protein bar for snacks, like eating really chill lunch. And then we would go out and we would enjoy a dinner and some dessert and stuff. So, kind of was, kind of not. And then whenever I came back, I just like got right on like strict with my stuff. But I'm just one of those people, like, I'm not going to, I might stress about it a little, but I'm not going to not enjoy like moments like that, because for me, like, you can't get back those memories. Like, there will always be more shows. There won't be another wedding. There won't be another honeymoon. There won't be like, you just can't get that back. So, I was going to go and enjoy myself some. Like, I didn't go crazy, but like, no matter what, I was going to go do that. Like, I had already made that decision myself. So, but we worked out every day. We went for like long walks, and like, we were super active. So it's not like we just sat around and done nothing the whole time.
No, of course not, especially because this is your lifestyle. And to that point about making sure to enjoy life's pleasures and knowing that there will always be shows, I kind of think, like, personally, my mindset has shifted a lot with competing since I first started. And like this year, I just felt, and even heading into this next year, I feel very different, where if I can't compete and prep and pursue this goal while also living my life, which is a majority of business and competing anyways,
Right.
why would I want to become a pro in something that doesn't let me also enjoy life? You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't make sense. So
Exactly.
I like
I
how
mean,
you conceptualize that.
I know there's some people that are like, I mean, like 150% spot on, like in improvement season prep. And like, I commend those people, but like, and there's times where I'll almost feel like a little guilty that like, oh, I'm in my improvement season. Oh, I ate a nibble of cookie and I didn't track it. Like, oh my gosh, am I a failure? Like, I don't try as hard as other people. Like, I'll spiral for a minute and then I'll be like, it's no, like, that's not going to make or break you. If you do like a bite of cookie like every hour, every day, like during your whole entire improvement season or prep, yeah, that probably is not going to work well for you.
Yeah.
But, I just like, I'm not going to pass up, like I said, like certain moments or memories or, and like exactly what you just said, if you can't enjoy a little bit of life while doing it, why do it? Like, if it doesn't add value to your life. And like, I've talked to some people where they're miserable during their preps, and like, and I was my first one ever. I was hangry 24/7, but I had a bad coach that didn't know what they were doing. And I was on like 900 calories for 6 months. I was
Mm-hmm.
losing hair, like malnourished kind
Jesus.
of thing. But ever since then, like having coaches that like knew kind of what they were doing and stuff, like I've gradually learned like not to be that way. And I mean, as far as like with my husband and I, like if I was the type to like, I know some people struggle where they don't have as much like relations with each other, and because like,
You mean
people are
sex?
prepping, they have to, yeah,
Or
like
okay.
having sex, or even just like time, like, movie time or like date nights or whatever, because they're prepping and they have to be 100% and so on and so forth. Like, I know I couldn't do it. Like, I won't sacrifice parts of my life or my marriage or stuff like that for bikini shows, is what it boils down to. I never want to make it sound like it's not important, because it is. Like, this is our passion. It's what we love, but like, you also have to uh the things in your life that should overtake importance over prep.
Beautifully said. And to expand on that, how do you prioritize those other areas of your life? Like, how do you remain connected in your relationship?
So, before we ever got married, we went through like a small like class with our preacher, like on marital counseling, and it was funny. Like, we had our binder and we would answer some of the questions before we went in, and we were on the same page really about like everything. My husband and I are so open, and we're all about communication. Like, that is something, like, he had been married before and had really, really bad communication, like with him and his ex-wife. And like the last relationship I had been in, like, I wasn't married, but it was like, 2 years. It was terrible, like horrible communication, just not good, like not a good person. Like, we both came out of situations where it was like, we knew things that we didn't want to carry on to our next relationship. So, we started out being so open with each other, and like all about communication, all about, talking about if things bother you or things are good, or like what we do and don't like. And even just about like silly things. Or like, as far as prep goes, like stuff can get hard and the nitty gritty isn't always pretty, like being open about that and not trying to hide anything. So we just focus a lot on communication. And with that, like, we've had our differences and we've had fights and we've had ups and downs, but as long as we come back to that, like if we have a problem, talking it out, and making sure that like we respect each other's like thoughts and values and opinions, like we've always been able to work through stuff. As far as like time scheduling, stuff like that, like, I always make sure that like we try to set aside a couple hours at night, like, or even an hour to where we can watch one show together, like cuddle on the couch, like stay connected. We always eat dinner together. I might be like cooking two totally separate meals and eating after him, but we're still sitting and we're talking, and you're like, we're around each other. Or we may go to the gym, even though we do separate workouts, we still try to go around the same time. So we're just like around each other. That's some of the things. And even like all through prep, I usually get refeeds like 1 to 2 times a week. But even if I don't have a refeed, like if he wanted to go out on a date night, I would go and I would order a grilled chicken salad. I have even taken my scale into restaurants. I have taken my own spray butter, my own seasoning, like, and I am very lucky and blessed to have a husband that doesn't get like embarrassed or mad or like freak out whenever I do that. Like, he supports me in that. So, we still go on date nights all the time. We still go out on the lake. Like, I just prepare all the time. If we go out on a boating day and he wants to go out boating, that's fine. Like, I take my whole cooler full of my whole day's meals. And I just prepare. So I just make sure and still do stuff that he wants to do and enjoy too.
I love it. Do you guys have different lifestyles, or is he into this as well?
So he doesn't compete, but he has been into like fitness and working out for, I mean, at least, I don't know, like 15 years, like for a long time. Like, he's
Oh,
always been pretty, like since, his younger, like 20s. Like he's always been pretty into fitness and everything. We're actually 13 years apart. So he's quite some years on me as far as like knowing the fitness background and stuff like that. So he's very into living healthy. I mean, he doesn't have, if he wants a burger and fries at a restaurant when we go, you know, he eats it and doesn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But most of the time, like him and I eat the same kind of stuff. He eats really clean. And even when we go to restaurants and stuff, he's still like super chill and he's really respectful. And like, if say I'm like really deep into prep and I'm ordering fish and a salad, you know, he usually won't order like the biggest burger and fries on the menu or anything. Sometimes he does, but it's usually when I'm like, you know, like I'm fine, like get what you want, like enjoy something. Cause I'm not going to make him be like miserable, quote, you know, so to say, cause most of the time I'm not really miserable, but I'm not going to make him not enjoy just cause I'm not enjoying the burger. But yeah, he's really healthy, really into fitness and stuff too. So that's also helpful. But in a way, it's kind of nice that he's not competing because I know some people do it. I don't know that it would go well if we both competed.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how some people do it. I don't know if I would be able to do that myself either. Like, I think maybe you would be really supportive and cheering them on. I don't know that I could be. I don't know. I'm with you on that. I don't know what that would look like.
I feel like it would almost be easier. Well, I don't know. I was going to say if one was in prep and one was in like improvement, but maybe not because then one would always be eating and one would be starving.
Selfishly, the benefit would be that if they're grilling chicken, you could just ask them to grill some more chicken.
Right.
Oh yeah.
No,
Well,
he's a good sport.
That's what matters. Like I appreciate your transparency as well about your relationship and just about how you prioritize it. And I would love to know why he encouraged you to compete.
So I mean, this was long before like he met me, but even as a younger girl, I've always had like your classic body dysmorphia, like poor self-image, very low self-confidence. Like this year is the first year I can ever honestly, like whenever I say it, I'm not just saying it and like faking it and like lying to people, but like say that I actually am starting to like myself and love myself. And the first time I've ever felt like, I guess what really confident people feel, like, because at the beginning of this prep and throughout this prep, I'm like, yeah, like I'm finally feeling like confident. I'm like, this is such a weird feeling. I'm like, is this what confident people feel all day, every day? Like, what is this? This is awesome. But I, yeah, he always knew that whenever we met, and I was still really self-conscious and just, I struggle with a lot of things. Like I had some eating disorders, like in high school and like kind of the beginning of college, like just like borderline anorexic. Like I just wouldn't eat, or I would like not eat. And then, you know, go eat like that whole half a chocolate cake and like all the Taco Bell at once. And then, so maybe a smidge like binge eating, but more so just like I would focus on not eating like all through high school too. And just cardio. Like I was a cardio bunny. Like, you know, you see those models that are super skinny and like that's what I always looked at. And I'm like, okay, that's beautiful. That's what I need to be at. And like it was that misconception in my head for years and years and years. So like I had started getting into lifting before I met him, but it was more like, you know, you go to the gym and you do the line of machines and then you go home and then you do a bunch of cardio. So when I met him, he's like, you know, you seem like you're into this, but maybe let's try to have you focus on like a goal. And then that would like help. And that whole concept of like eating on purpose was like super foreign. So I was like, no, like I honestly, at the beginning, I was like, that's stupid. Like he showed me some stuff. I'm like, people just get up there to show off, like whatever. And then I started the prep and did my first show and I was like, oh, holy crap, I love this. Like this is so much dedication and time and like takes so much strength and effort. Like, I love this. Like, I'm going to do this forever. And that was with my bad coach where I was like starving and I still wanted to like keep doing it. So, I guess that's kind of why, like, he just knew some of the like tendencies I had and felt like maybe it would help. And I know sometimes competing can amplify those in a poor way, and some people can have a reverse effect and make it worse. But luckily, I was someone who like it did take a turn for the good, like for the better. So it was able to take my like food focusing where, I'm focusing on like not eating and not doing this and only cardio and didn't want to get bigger. And like I was still tracking it and still focusing it, but it was like, okay, I got to hit, this calorie and do this and this. So I'm pretty OCD. So it just took that OCD, like poor tendencies, and put it towards like a better outcome.
Yeah, like the intention changed and you almost developed a outlet for those tendencies.
Yeah.
And sometimes we see that go negatively, like we see people who had anorexia and then they join competing and you almost wonder like, ooh, are you still struggling with that? Like to some degree. But then there's like those really positive cases, like what you're saying for yourself, you for the first time ever, you're really feeling amazing about yourself and confident in yourself and loving yourself, which is awesome. So you've posted about speaking positively to and about yourself. And I was wondering how that conversation has changed for you. Like, what are you saying to yourself on a daily basis now compared to maybe last 2 years ago?
So I really tried to work on like self-awareness, like, and almost becoming like a third person outside of your own mind and body. That sounds silly, I guess, but I'll explain further.
Mm-hmm.
So like last year, I guess I was like cutting and cutting and cutting. Like I did North Americans, and then I did Universe, and then I did Nationals, and then USA. So I mean, I did a long month span of like cutting. And by USA's, like I look back at pictures and I was so small. Like I had lost a decent amount of my upper body and I was so lean. Like I could tell like I was at that level where it's like, oh, she does not look like just walk off a beach, lean, ready to do a bikini show. She was like, oh, she looks depleted and lean. And it wasn't anything I was doing wrong. Like my body was just done. Like I was done.
Yeah.
And I still remember taking check-in pictures up until the like day before the last show. And I was like, oh my gosh, I look fluffy. I I'm too big. I like pick this apart, pick that apart. And then like the stuff with my husband happened, and I'm a huge baker, as we've talked about. And so I make all my stuff for holidays, and I probably overindulged a little too much. Didn't do a super proper reverse, but I definitely like used all my extra calories. Like in the gym, I had the best like workouts, cardio, like I put it to use. But after that whole thing and kind of like my husband's injury and stuff, it's like it knocked me into my head like, okay, like there's more to life than just leaning down for a bikini show. And I realized by the end of the shows, like I had kind of missed out on like some memories along the way because I was so hyper focused on this stinking pro card that I kind of ruined some of my show experiences. And so when I started this year, I only took a month and a half essentially of like improvement season before I started cutting again. But in that month and a half, like I went out, we enjoyed weekends with friends, enjoyed food, enjoyed family holidays. Like even though my reverse didn't go as well, like I don't regret anything that I did. I put on a little extra weight a little faster than I would have liked to, but probably got up to where I would have been anyways. So when I first started in sending my check-ins, I'm really bad about when I would send check-ins. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I still feel like I'm like extra thick or extra this, or my this isn't right, or my that isn't right, or this is bad, or whatever. I was listening to one of your podcast, actually.
Oh.
This is when I got really into listening to the podcast throughout this, because it really helped me with like cardio, and it just helped me start getting in that more positive mindset. In one of them, it talked about like, I can't remember which girl it was, but they were talking about exuding confidence. And the only way for people to be confident in you is if you like exude confidence and you are confident in yourself. And it's not like we haven't heard that before, but when I was listening to that particular episode, it just like light bulb. I don't know what happened, but I'm just like, man, like, why would anybody vote for me? Why would anybody believe in me? Why would anybody be confident in me? Like, I walk out like I'm already beat. Like, that's why they're not, because you're acting like you're not. So I really took that like walk, talk, act like a pro, like really to heart. Cause I'm like, until I do this, then I don't deserve to be a pro. Like, I could have the best physique in the world and it wouldn't matter because my mind is not where it needs to be. So when I sent my first check-in that February, when I started my cut, I was still thick for me, like pretty thick. And I'm like, you know what? Each one I'm going to send and say that I feel good, even though like I've been in a surplus, that like either my energy is good. My upper body's way fuller because I've lifted so heavy with all these extra calories. Like each week I would only send positive things. Like, it's not like if I was actually having trouble with something or I was concerned about something, I would tell her that, but I would only say like, yeah, my glutes are looking really full. My hamstrings are starting to come in. Like, I'm loving my posing changes. And each week that I would do that, I would wake up actually like excited about check-ins. Whereas last year, like, I would dread every single one, every one of them, because I just got in that negative headspace. So yeah, I mean, that's how I started my year off this year. And each week that I like set myself up for that success, each check-in, like, I had better and better. And my, like, the way that we did like high, low calorie days, and like still did my refeeds. And so the way that the nutrition and the cardio and like just having that positive mindset, I'm not kidding. Like, it is the best my body has ever responded to a prep, which I know, like, the more lean muscle mass you have, like, the easier it is to cut. And usually, like, each year it gets a little easier to cut sometimes, not always, but still, I think that whole like positive self-talk, like, it's real. Because if you are positive to yourself and you're happy when you go to do that, like, you're not going to have high cortisol levels. You're not going to be stressed. Like, your body's going to just like respond super well to it. So that's where, long story short, sorry, I know all my answers are like so long.
I love it. No, don't apologize.
But yeah, I mean, that's where I set off at like this year. And I just like still am on that. I've had a few reversing out of my shows already. Like, I've had a few days where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't like how I look. And this goes back to that self-awareness catch. I'll stop myself and be like, nope, like, we are not starting that again. Because I know if I do that, I'm the type of person that'll just spiral, and it's just not good. And it doesn't benefit you in any way. So if I have a day like that, I, throw on a t-shirt and I'll wear my waist trainer and drink extra water. And then I wake up and feel better the next day. Like, as long as you go with each day, like, each day is a new day. So if you have a bad day, like, don't have a bad week because you had a bad day. Like, don't have a bad month because you had a bad week. Like, got to start fresh and just keep that positivity going.
Powerful words and experiences you just shared. And what stood out to me is the positive self-talk leads to those positive results, which is true, because also if you believe in yourself, like, obviously the physiological aspects, which you touched on, but then think of the person who believes in themselves and talks kindly to themselves and with conviction that they are amazing and they're going to be the best. they're probably going to show up differently in the gym than the person who's like, I suck, I don't look good, I'm still not where I need to be. Like that person maybe has a little bit of a defeated mindset versus a hopeful, like I can accomplish anything mindset.
Oh, definitely. I agree.
And then you also just mentioned something that made me think back to an experience I had post show one year where it was like almost as though the sabotage became easier because when you have a bad day and you fixate on the bad day, you do think it's like the end of the world sometimes. Like it does. Okay, maybe not literally, but you know what I mean? Like it feels like, wow, I've ruined
Yeah.
everything. It's like that all or nothing takes over. And it's good that you have awareness and you pause it and you reflect on it and you say, no, this isn't going to dictate it. But I've been there where it does dictate it. And it's terrible because when you start saying, oh, I look fat, then, or I look too fluffy, or I look bigger than I should be, or I've gained too much weight, what usually then happens is, oh, might as well, doesn't matter anymore. I'm already this much. I don't look good. So then you just spiral.
Yeah. Yeah. It can get out of control really easy.
So why do you choose to compete?
So, oh, I don't know. It's a loaded question.
I know it's a loaded question.
um, I've, I mean, initially, like, it gave me, like, I loved working out and I loved being healthy and like eating healthy and like getting away from my like really bad tendencies through high school and college and stuff. But, it gave me that like end goal to work for. Like I'm always someone that like I want to challenge. Like I want to keep challenging myself and I want to set a higher goal and reach that goal and set a higher goal and so on and so forth. But um that's not really my reason anymore. It's not that I don't still have goals. I want to go to Olympia. Like that is my ultimate goal. Preferably like that is my 2022 goal, like is to make it to Olympia. And I will give it everything I've got. Because eventually I do want babies and I want to have time to do that. But you know, it, it's more like when I joined Box Bodies last year and I was able to like get connected with my coach Casey, she like I don't know if she ever listens to these
Of
or
course
will
she
listen
does.
to them.
Everybody listens to this podcast.
I know
I'm
she
totally kidding.
probably does. She can listen to it during cardio too, like we all do. That's the only way I get through cardio.
That's awesome.
But she like truly changed like my life. This team and her, like I mean, she's the reason why like I started out even like this year having more confidence and starting to like myself and love myself and like this team. Like I have not had a lot of girlfriends growing up. And because you know how it is, like girls just sometimes aren't the easiest to be friends with. And it's like girls that you meet through this sport. So not even just my team, but especially my team. Like I feel like there's this inner web and inner like map across the US of like a family that you have, like no matter what happens. Like they may not live in the same state. They may not, you may see them once a year, but like you can pick up your phone and text or call like one of the girls on the team or like, you or meeting like other girls at the like shows. They don't have to be on your team, but like you connect in ways that I never thought was possible. Like I would have never dreamed I had this many like girlfriends like through something as simple as a bikini competition. Like so I keep going because of just the connections you make and just there's a sense of belonging that it gives you that like I know you get what I mean. It's really hard to describe. So
It's
I compete.
indescribable.
Yeah, I compete for that family, that bond, that I mean it's a rush. Like of course, like stage is a rush and like I compete to better myself. Like there's always something even when you win, there is always something to work on. There is always something to improve and to like not fix, but just, make better. Like we can all be better each and every day as competitors, as teammates, as, a coach or a trainer or a nurse or a farmer, whatever you are in real life. Like competing teaches you lessons about like every aspect of life, not just how to make it in the gym or how to eat healthy. Like it teaches you dedication and hard work and like how to be like strict when you need to, and how to set boundaries. And you can use that in all of your aspects of life. So it just overall enriches my life, and I will continue to compete as long as it is still adding value to my life. And if it ever gets to where it doesn't, then I might reevaluate and decide not to. But for now, I don't find that happening for quite so many years.
Amazing. Everything you just said, I'm like nodding my head on the other side of the screen because it's true. It's true. Competing is so amazing. And yes, you can get these things from other outlets and other hobbies and stuff, but if you really love it and it does add value to your life, it's amazing what it can bring you, and the community, like you said, and the lessons. And just everything you expanded on was really, really great, because I think people listening who maybe are like, why am I doing this? Especially if you're in the thick of it, you're like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? That's why, like really reconnect to what does this bring your life? Because if there's no benefit to your life, of course you're not going to want to do the things that are difficult to do in prep. But if you can always reconnect, as people say, reconnect to your why, if you can do that, it will keep you going. And obviously it's worked for you and it's benefited you in other areas of your life. And I have a kind of random question out of curiosity. You had gone to school for studying vocal music and you had previous interests in acting and modeling. Do you feel like competing satisfies some of those creative interests that you didn't get to pursue long term, or didn't choose to, I should say?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, like all those silly aptitude tests and stuff you take in like high school and everything, like it always put me in like a performing arts, like something with that, like on that end. But I grew up in a town of 500 people in the middle of nowhere, and I was raised really strict Southern Baptist. So,
Wow.
Modeling and acting was not ever in the cards for me. I'm just going to be honest. So that vocal music was like one of those, like, okay, maybe this could like satisfy ish, like enough. And then I started it and realized that I didn't want to spend that much money and spend that much time in school for a degree that was going to allow me to do what I could already do, which is sing if I really wanted to.
Yeah.
It was really going to allow me to teach. And I knew I did not want to be a music teacher.
Hmm.
So I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I'm like, okay, what can I do that I can have a job whenever I get out of school? So my mom's been a nurse my whole life. So I just went to nursing school because I love taking care of people. Like I'm a caretaker person. That's my personality. I've always been, my sister and I have always joked, like, and my parents think this too, like she's a little more selfish and I'm a little more selfless, whereas I am very bossy and she is actually like a more of a team player. So like, that's why we would get along when it came to like childhood stuff, because our opposites, attracted each other. So as far as like nursing, I was like, I love to take care of people. I want to make people feel better and feel good. And like, I want to fix things. So I went into that. And so whenever my husband had talked about this and I started like, well, boyfriend at the time, I had started looking at it. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of like when people don't know what this is, I'm like, it's like an extreme fitness pageant. Like, cause it's really hard when people don't know anything about the world. They're like, wait, you just stand in front of people, but you say something like that and they're like, oh, okay. So
You're like,
when
you
I
don't
watched like,
talk, you only get judged on your physique.
yeah. So like whenever I first looked at it, I'm like, okay, I mean, maybe, yeah, that could be like a little bit of like a modeling, a little bit of like a show. And that's so, yeah, to answer your question, I feel like it does because that's why like the posing and like that part of it, like I thrive whenever my foot actually sets the stage. Like that's my favorite part. Like some people love the backstage and then they get super nervous on stage. I'm like a little anxious backstage. The waiting kills me. And when I get out on stage, like the nerves are gone. Like I'm ready. Like I am all in. I'm there. I'm having fun. I'm in the moment. Like surprisingly, I remember everything from the pro show. I can pick out still like the memory, like certain people's voices, like my husband yelling, like one of my girls on
Wow.
my team yelling. Like I can think about all of it. And normally I can't,
Mhm.
but like that show, like I feel like when you let go and you just enjoy, like you remember more of it. So I think it does. Like it's good enough for me because I look back at like I had been tried to sign on with like modeling agencies and stuff, and they actually always would tell me like I was still too big because like the muscle, they don't want that. That's not
Right.
the look they look for. And I'm like, okay, if I'm like a size whatever, like I'm pretty small for 5'10". I'm like, and you're telling me I'm too big, then this ain't ever happening. Like, no, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah, and it's so like the world has changed where yeah, there's still obviously a massive modeling market and world, but many influencers are taking on that role and you are now like an ambassador, an athlete for different companies. So you get to model a lifestyle, you get to model a choice. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. And I mean, for people like that don't know much about modeling agencies and stuff like that, like there's lots of rules, there's lots of restrictions, there's, you can only do this type here, blah, 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 like whatever they say. Whereas like on Instagram, which is really the only one of the only social medias I'm really active on, you're able to kind of make your own like brand, like represent yourself how you want and how you want to be portrayed. And as far as like clothes and supplements and everything like that. So yeah, it's fun like to be able to go out and do pictures with people and, be able to post and share that and kind of give yourself that outlet. So yeah, I think Instagram is one of my favorites because it's either like fitness or like fashion or food.
Yeah, it's a special platform and sometimes it's actually funny you mentioned like there's some people who don't know anything about bodybuilding. Like when you tell a bodybuilder that, they're like, oh, yeah, that's true. But like, we're all consumed by it because we're listening to the podcast on it. We're watching the YouTube videos. We're on Instagram following all these other people and competing. And then, you go on the explore page and sometimes you get little snippets that there's other things out there, which of course we know that. I'm not saying we don't, but sometimes we get caught up in our world. And I think, like you said earlier, this goes back to the point of belonging. You really get to choose and find and also represent your own brand, which is special. And you had like kind of branching off of the impact idea, you work as a trainer as well. Even though you didn't want to teach music, you're now teaching fitness, you're teaching something you're passionate about, and there's nothing better than making an impact. So, do you hope to make an impact or maybe work with competitors in the future?
So like I love going from the nursing side of it. Like I love to take care of people and like fix things and stuff, but I never really wanted to be a nurse. So I really this year branched out and talked to my husband. I'm like, okay, I really want to get to where I don't work hardly any at the hospital and I want to try to do full on training, see if I can get in-person clients here at the lake. And once I took like almost all my hours off of the hospital because I work PRN, so I can kind of pick and choose. Um, like I went from like having 2 clients to like 12 in person, like 3 to 4 days
Wow.
a week. I'm super busy with that. And I I want to help people before they ever get to the point of needing the hospital. And like
Love
I'm
that.
so passionate about the fitness and like helping people learn how to like not just, follow a meal plan on a piece of paper, but like as far as like lifestyle, like some of my older like clients that I have, like teaching them about making healthy choices and being intentional with activity. And so it's not just like, here's your workout, here's your food, like have fun. So that's been fun. But I will say, since we already talked, like I know this is going to be released a little bit later, so hopefully by then it'll be in full swing. But I have just recently started in this last week training to become a competition coach with my team that I'm on, Boss Bodies. So I am super excited about that. I don't have a lot to comment on it because it's very fresh, it's very new. We were waiting until I was done with my pro show to start like really talking about it at all. So this has all been in like the last week. So I'm super pumped. And I think the competition coaching is, I like lifestyle coaching too. And like my lifestyle clients here at the lake, especially because they're locals and I see them in person. But sometimes I find myself like so passionate and so like driven for it that I want it more than they do. So when they don't follow their stuff, I'm like, but you could do so good. Like, come on. And I think like us as competitors, like when we set that show date and when we have those goals, like we're pretty like, I feel like 98% of competitors are pretty driven and pretty like set on their goals. So they're committed and they're going to listen to what you say and they're going to follow what you give them and they're going to be like excited about it. And even more so, like if your coach is like passionate and excited about what you're doing and like you specifically in your journey, like that makes me excited. So I want to be that, I want to be that person for somebody. So that's super like fresh and exciting and fun news. So
Amazing.
I hope by the time this comes out, it's like full force.
That'd be awesome. Of course, at the end, I'll have you tell people where they can find you and everything on Instagram. Of course, you just search your name, but I'm hoping that that's the case for you. I'm so happy for you. And it's a team that you're aligned with and that you've had good experiences with. And I love what you just said too about working with competitors. Like, I just want to comment on this. I feel the same exact way. Like, I'm so blessed to work with competitors, amateurs and pros, on their relationship with food, their body, and their goals. And it is a vast difference than when I was doing this for like more general population. And I love the general population as well. I still serve them, but it's a different coaching approach, I would say. And it is true. There's a lot of follow through from competitors because there's maybe more skin in the game, if you want to say that. You're going to be stepping on stage, you got a show date, you have goals of maybe being a pro one day or making it to the Olympia or the Arnold, getting an invite, going to these photo shoots, like making a difference in the community. And I think all those can really signify that drive. Plus, a lot of us are just very type A. And like you said earlier, kind of take some of that out with competing.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of competitors in some way, like have either went through either like struggles with food or struggles with like activity or like not everybody, but I do feel like many of us have like some type of background or story or like mental health struggle or something. So I think that almost like it makes us more empathetic to each other and to like the general public as well.
Yes.
And it does make us more like driven to accomplishing our goals because we don't want to fall back into those bad habits. Maybe that's just like my thought of it, but I feel like that is the case.
I love that. I like that we can just talk about it openly and share our experiences and what we think it could be contributed to or from, because it's interesting. It's an interesting thing to think about. There's a lot of commonalities among the competitors that I've worked with, and there's also a lot of differences. And I think it's really special. I just think you made a really good point too about the empathy and compassion. And of course, part of being a coach comes with knowing what you're doing. So it's great that you're being trained. And also you said you really want to care for people still, and you want to be able to support them in achieving these goals. So I think now would be a good time to ask you the questions that I ask everybody at the end of the episode, which is, what is your best advice for girls who have never competed before but would like to, and then your best advice for girls on their road to pro?
So, I feel like advice for girls who have never competed but would like to, like a few different pieces. I would say first, like do some research. Kind of like listen to these podcasts, listen to other ones, watch some different YouTubes on shows, research teams, coaches, coaching styles, training styles, like eating food styles, like maybe get in the gym, get a feel for it if you haven't already before. Maybe start some lifestyle coaching first if you've never done any of it. Definitely, like if you've never been into the gym a lot, like whenever I first started my first prep, I cut before I ever built, which was silly. It was a waste of time, but the coach that I started with never, didn't even think a thing of it. So I leaned out great, but I leaned down to nothing because I didn't have that muscle foundation. So taking a proper like time to build before you would go into a show, I think is probably one of the biggest pieces of advice, because it could save you a whole year and a half of not time wasted, but time better well spent. Because by the time you cut down and then you have to build back up and then finally cut to get that first real product, you could have just done that the first time. And then also like something my coach had told us at the Boss Body seminar last September, she uses this planner called a Fox planner. And it's where you can like write down your goals, and it has like a vision board and like your 3-month goals and like your year goals. And then it has like, there's a few different options of like planners on the site, but I got one last October and I wrote down my goals for like the 2022 to 2020 to 2021. And like some of the top ones were, I had some relationship goals that were like accomplished and some like daily like habit stuff that like were accomplished and everything. But like one of them was to like work on my own baking business, and I did that. And one of them was to like for fitness wise and for like those first time competitors, like I wrote down I wanted to go pro, and I wrote down I wanted to compete at a pro show. And then also like just for my own purposes, like I wrote that, I wanted to get connected with my team and start coaching and start training. And within, I didn't count it up from last October to now, whatever that is, like 9 months or something. I accomplished all of those goals. So at first, whenever I was listening to her, I'm like, yeah, I mean, writing stuff helps some, a little silly, whatever. And then I started doing it and I'm like, wow, like it's like it organizes what you want in your brain, but on a piece of paper. So you go back, and I would look at it every couple of weeks, every couple of months. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this happen. So I think setting goals, but also setting realistic goals, because then I would break it down and be like, okay, I'm going to place top 5 at like the next show. I'm going to compete at a national show. Like, so I think for those competitors, or for the girls that have never competed before, do your research, think about your why before you ever start. Because if you just want to compete to win, then maybe think about picking something else to do, because as you know, like as we all know, you're going to lose a lot more than you win, like I said earlier. So maybe I think that would be some of my best pieces of advice for like someone who's never competed before. That may have been, again, a little long.
No, it's amazing.
But for someone that's still on their road to pro, number one word that comes to mind is patience. And then number 2 is perseverance. So I did 14 shows to get that pro card and 7 national shows. So not all together, like 7 were regional and 7 were national, but it took me 2.5 years. And I don't know that I really had the pro goal until like just probably like a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. the end of my 2019 season. So, but still 14 shows. And that goes back to like the fact that I think I let some of those shows and some of those memories and moments pass me by because I didn't have the patience to be like, okay, I just want the pro card. Like, let's hurry up. So I think practicing patience and the perseverance of, if you lose, get back up, dust yourself off, and go to the next one. Take away what the judges say, take away what your coach says, learn from it, and use it to better yourself. Like, if you don't win, you didn't do anything wrong. Like, that doesn't mean you're a failure. That doesn't mean like the world is ending, like you said earlier. Like, that just means you have things to improve on, and you get to go back and better yourself even more. Not you have to, like, you get to. So just staying dedicated and keeping that positive like mindset and positive self-talk. Because if you have that dream, like, if you keep pushing and you keep going back time after time after time, like, it's gonna happen. So that's probably in a nutshell, what I would say to someone on the road to pro.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that. I'm so grateful for just everything that you've talked about today and for that advice as well. And I want people to be able to connect with you, maybe work with you as well if the timing is right and they're interested. And also, if you could share information for your baking business, so maybe people in your area could support you as well if you're willing to share that.
Yeah, so I have a Instagram for my baking business. It's called KG's Sweet Treats. So it's KGS and then Sweet Treats, all together, one word. I still do some stuff with it. I have gotten busy enough with training, and now starting with the competition training, I will probably do not as much, but I specialize in sweet drops, which is essentially a cake pop without the stick. So it's a delicious ball of cake and frosting and everything or anything you can mix in to it. And they ship pretty well. So I have had some girls order them for post-show treats, or like their little pump-up treats or something too. So I have those. And then as far as like, did you already ask where they can find me?
I would love to know where they can find you.
You already asked that.
I threw it in with my big jumbled question.
Okay. I keep forgetting my actual Instagram, but I believe it is now, because I changed it finally. It's Kimberly Gier, all together, _IFBB Pro.
Awesome.
And I don't really, I have a Facebook, but I don't put I keep Facebook all fam appropriate. So I don't post any fitness or anything like that on there. Because they're not as much into my competing world. So I'm pretty much just on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure I put both of those Instagrams in the show notes page. So you guys listening, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. Of course, if you go to the category section, it's all alphabetized. So you can scroll down to Kimberly Gier and she will be there. Or of course, if you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of that page. And if you guys love this episode and got some takeaways, share it with us. It always is so awesome. Every Friday and beyond. I love it even when I get tags from like really old episodes. It's so cool. And the athletes love it too. So definitely keep sharing with your teammates, share with us, leave a rating and review. Just helps to shine light on these amazing stories like Kimberly's. So thank you guys for tuning in again. And thank you for coming on, Kimberly.
Yes, thank you for having me. Like I told you, I've been wanting to come on this. I don't know, like last year sometime when I messaged you, I'm like, I'm going to come on this show one day. So this is one of my goals, and I finally can cross that one off. So I appreciate you and everything you do for all of us girls, guys, whoever's listening, because it really is motivating. And it just like every time I listen to one of these podcasts, like it just gets me in such a good mood and pumped up, like ready to go work out, ready to keep like crushing my goals and keep going. And you are just like such a positive, like light and energy. And like you really do teach everybody a lot on, being confident and being like the most important of like that mental mindset, mental health and stuff. And yeah, I know a lot of girls and I talk about this show all the time. So we
Oh, that's
appreciate you and
cool.
appreciate you for letting me come on and share my story. It's been so much fun.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for all of those kind words and for saying that. And to you guys listening, like Kim did message me, like, I don't know. I don't remember when it was like
So long ago.
no, it was in November. And you were like, I want to inspire people. I want to share. I want to shine God's light through everything that you do. You want to represent the sport and your team. And I just thought, that's amazing. And I know you will do it. I knew you would do it one day. And I said to you, I have no doubt that one day will happen. And here you are. So, and your kind words.
And
you
screenshots
did
of our show and frame them.
Yeah, oh my God, for real, because you wrote it down, right? Like you were saying, and it came to fruition. And I appreciate your support and that you listen. And I'm so grateful for, again, the kind words that you said about me and the show as well. So appreciate you and appreciate all of you listening if you feel the same way. And if you don't, hopefully one day you do. But have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Bye.